And so I would just tell myself to soften the fuck up, love a lot more, and trust.
Trust more.
Yeah, trust, love, and soften.
Boom. Aubrey, how are you?
I'm well.
Welcome to the show. It's so great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
You just came up from San Diego.
I did.
And San Diego, you're living the dream out there.
It's like a very relaxed home base.
When did you move to San Diego?
Like 12 years ago.
Was it love at first sight?
No, it was like settle at first sight, and it still is.
Really?
Yeah.
Settling. Did you feel like that when you first moved there? Or was it like, just because you've been there for so long, it almost feels like you need change?
I think now that I look back, I understand that for the first few years, it was helping me to grow. And now it's, since then. Right. So for about 10 years of settling.
There's a lot of good people in San Diego, though. It's like, it seems like a lot of the crowd that you follow is inside of San Diego, like people that are into yoga, rock climbing, like all about the good vibes, good nature.
Yeah, relatively so. I posted about my first workshop in San Diego, and I had like 17 people show up. It was a good turnout.
Where was this at?
It was at Trilogy. It was a really great place, yeah. But in that same post, I was like, oh, and also I'm doing one in Denver. And I got so many DMs from that. And then I posted once about my workshop in Denver, and I got like 40 people to sign up. So I think that's a small example of how maybe caught or welcomed I feel in other places, and maybe not so much in San Diego.
I love Trilogy. Trilogy, that whole community is so cool. What's her name who runs Trilogy?
Layla.
Shout out Layla. Big shout out Layla.
Yeah, man. It was great. The 17 people who did show up we had a blast. It was a beautiful workshop, and it's been a long dream kind of in the making of getting a workshop at Trilogy eventually, because it's an intimidating space and some really, really amazing people. So,
well, you seem like someone that's just like making moves. You've been like right there. You got that upbeat mentality. You're not scared to just jump right into it. And like, you've really just, your career in terms of just everything you've been doing is amazing. It's outstanding. You're a mentor and an influencer to so many people, and people that I adore know you, and they're like, oh my God,
holy shit, no way.
so fantastic. And it's cool. Like, were you like that? Just like when you were growing up, were you always like super outgoing and like out here?
It's like, okay, so a lot of people, there's a lot of negative to the internet. And what that really is a hyper connection to some of the negative shit that is in society, unfortunately. So that being said, if you ask me, like, Instagram is amazing. It's changed my life for the better. I was so shy. Oh my God. Like, leaving my house to go to the bank. No, it felt like stepping into a party that I wasn't invited to. Like, being in public and being social and even just making eye contact. I think Apple kind of was the beginning of it. That kind of like broke away the homeschool shell, like I'm from a town of 1,200 people kind of, and gave me another platform to work from. But I was still so hardened. So I was pretty like quote unquote confident and pretty outgoing, but through like a very aggressive, like, I'm better than you, I'm stronger than you kind of way of being. Really,
you developed thick skin quick.
Yeah, I was very fear-based. And then through Instagram, I met the brand that I now work with. And through that brand, I've met, I'd say, about a dozen individuals who have just completely changed and sculpted my life. And yeah.
Isn't it amazing that when you meet certain people, they unlock different abilities you never knew you had?
Yeah, you use the word unlock. And I think that that's a really great, it feels like it's magic. So when people ask you, like, how did you get from this point to that point? I'm like, well, there was that one night when I met this group of people and we had this it's almost like it's unquantifiable. You'd have to take like a really detailed journal, right, every day to even begin to figure out the path that you took to success.
And I feel like once you see someone else that's actually doing it, it makes you realize for the first time, like, whoa, this person's just as goony and fun and, not too serious. And they're out here living their dream. And you're like, I can do that too.
Yeah, I was just in Colorado with a brand, and I had, kind of met first through their social media manager, and then their community manager. And then I found myself in the living room of the owners, and it's like this 28-year-old dude who's just kind of goofy. He's a little insecure. He struggles, he's got his own like mental blocks. And I was like, oh man, thank you for that reminder that, You know, you might be the owner of $1 million business, but you're just like a human.
Right. And and the people that can show that, because everyone is thinking, I feel like everyone's thinking the same thing. We're all caught up in our own heads. We're all, you know, we're all in our own reality. We don't perceive things from other people's reality. And we all believe that if only I was this person, if only I was her, if only I had this, I would be happy. Yeah. And then like, I like what Naval said on Joe Rogan's podcast. Naval is like a huge investor. He's the co-founder of AngelList. And he said that you need to become wealthy, number one. And his reasoning behind that is you need to become wealthy to realize that wealth isn't the answer. But you can't tell someone who doesn't have anything to be that way. That's just his thought process. I found it interesting.
That's incredible.
It's basically saying like, look, like you can't tell someone that's, you know, struggling.
Sure.
That money's not the answer. Because they're like, yeah, get GTFO.
Right. Well, what is it? Desire attained is no longer desire at all.
Right.
Right. And so it's kind of like anything we want or desire before we get it. That's it. That's kind of like the pinnacle, the end all. And then you get it. You're like, oh shit, that thing about it being the journey, it was true. Fuck, now I need to find another goal so I can experience the journey and forget about it all over again.
So you had mentioned Apple being a way to help you break through on social media. What is your connection to Apple?
Sure. So I think that was sort of trailing about the idea about have I always been very open, and so I homeschooled. I got kicked out of high school, and I homeschooled.
How'd you get kicked out of high school?
I'm from like a really small town, and it was either like fight or not. You know.
You're straight fighting?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
We just had a UFC fighter on our last podcast. Do you think you'd stand up to him in the ring?
I don't know. I did wrestle co-ed for a few years. I might be able to.
Interesting.
I'm just
might have to arrange that.
So before I got my job at Apple, I remember even like, I was just kind of this, like I'd done a few jobs at hotels and I didn't have a lot of personality. I was kind of a shell. I remember being able to make like exquisite eye contact and having really extraordinary posture. But then when they'd ask me more, like, what do you do what are your passions? What did you do in school? It was like, well, not much. So I think it was not only at Apple did I develop obviously like video editing skills and photo editing skills and web design and met some really talented people. But interpersonal skills. I learned how to communicate. I learned how to think of myself as an equal. And I think that stemmed from having knowledge that the customers who came in seeking didn't have, right? And so it's like, even if it was a business owner or a CEO, a doctor, and it was like, well, here I am helping you fix this problem, you know, that's really important to you. So I think that helped to give me some kind of...
So you like stepped into your power a little bit.
Yeah. But like I was saying, it stepped into a sense of power, but through fear. Right, I wasn't leading with love, but I was, stepping into some power.
Damn, first of all, nice rings. Those things are
so much.
Those things are gangster. What is there like a symbolic between that?
Well, these two are from New Mexico, and they're kind of like very Native American inspired. This one is from Thailand. I was just checking out of my villa, and I looked across the street, and I saw what I thought was a huge chunk of turquoise. And I ran across the street, and he's like, "No, it's a moonstone." I'm like, "No, it's not, but I'll take it." So yeah, and then this was my mom's first wedding ring or wedding band.
I love that.
Yeah.
One of my good friend Dan Hunt, shout out. He was on the podcast. He's working on
Hi, Dan.
A line of blog posts, and eventually he's going to be writing a book called Removalism. And he talks about, have you heard of the Marie Kondo thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's talking about the idea of removalism and constantly trying to reiterate what do we actually love and what do we not love. Have you ever done anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in a super blessed position. The brand that I work with, Aloe, for the last 4 years, you get a huge chunk of their season every season. That's 4 times a year. And I live in a 500 square foot little cottage. So I'm constantly reanalyzing what is it like. You know what I do? It's what do I pack when I'm traveling? You know, those are my favorites. And then from there, I'm constantly just whittling away. And it's actually like a really self-centered action, right? That there's no such thing as true altruism, because there's something so special about giving people whatever it is that they need. When you give it, it fills you up.
Mm-hmm. It feels so good.
It's funny. All the time.
It's funny how we all have our grade A clothes and then our grade B clothes.
Yeah, and then it's
C
why do we hold on to them? Just you never wear
Skylar
them.
just rips me apart all the time because before Skylar, my outfits were really, really hurting.
They were all grade C, but that was your main.
I love neon, man. I rock too much neon.
I had to come in with a little style expertise, change the Jones style up a little bit.
change it up a little bit, change the script on it.
He was all about neon colors, and I think we found a fine balance with these pastels. You know, I think it looks good on him. He still gets those bright colors that he wants, but it's a little dulled down, you know.
Yeah.
Pastel.
Looks good with your eyes. Works.
Like that.
Toaster strudels and pastels. But I'm really curious about when you first stepped into yoga. When did you first have your first yoga class?
I was like 19 and I was working at this pizza restaurant, and one of my coworkers was complaining she had to get in a certain amount of hours and didn't want to go to class alone, and talked me into going to a core power class. And I remember it was candlelit, and I was like, oh, this is something I can get down with. Like, no one's looking at me, and I could be in the back row and just kind of like, you know what, true story. I remember for many, many years, it took me about 8 years of doing yoga before I realized that there was such thing as sequences. And so it was like halfway through teacher training, I was like, oh shit, that's how the girls to the left and to the right of me always know what pose is coming next, because it's a sequence. But so I remember sitting in the back of class just floundering, like, oh, left side, oh, this. And it was a Wednesday night candlelit class, and it's the only one I felt comfortable going to because it was dark and felt more private.
Sequences are just like combos and fighting, like boom, boom, boom type deal.
Well, you might have like your son A and your son B, right? And then from there, you're going to break away and do a certain sequence, and it's going to, take place on one side of the body, and then you transition and do the other side.
Well, that's a major key. So you're saying you're doing this art for 8 years before you have this utter breakthrough.
It was like, gosh. And I remember the girls in class being like, wait, you just had this breakthrough? Like we're like practicing for one of our final tests, and there I was just understanding the flow of a public yoga class. So
that's amazing. I mean, that's good for everyone to understand and realize, because I think people constantly look at us at who we are now and we're not where we were.
Yeah. In fact, as a teacher, I still shy away from teaching sequence classes because it just does something. I have a learning disability, and it does something to my brain, and I'm like, and now I'm a little bit more embodied, and I love my strengths, and so my weaknesses don't affect me as much, and I kind of think it's cute how my brain works.
Do you think it's like a real, and I'm not sure if there's an official name of what you call your learning disability, but do you think it's a real disability or just something what society calls a disability?
Exactly, right? It's not like, is it a disability, or is that just how my brain works? Like, that's like taking two plants and being like, well, this one grows straight and this one grows this one's a little disabled. Like, no, I don't think it's a disability at all. But the way I process information is very different than most people I've experienced. And if you maybe didn't know some of my stronger sides, like my artistic side or whatever, and you just said, hey, like, what's 25% of this nut? You might think I'm a little slow, right? You'd be like, man, that girl's kind of goofy. Or if you asked me to recite some specific set of instructions, yeah.
With the artistic side of things, are you into like a specific type of art? Like, are you into like actually drawing and stuff like that?
Yeah, video editing and photography editing.
Is that your first love?
Yeah, absolutely. Before then, I never considered myself an artist. I don't want to say like the word I can't, but right now drawing, singing, painting, sculpture, none of those are really a part of my arsenal of expression. But video editing, I picked it up like overnight, and it's even so filming and photographing, but really the editing.
The editing is so interesting because people that edit know how much goes into editing.
Yeah.
And then people see it, they have no idea what goes into it.
Yeah. I remember when I used to edit little, 3-minute shorts or whatever, and my friends would look away for 4 or 5 seconds, and I'd be like, no, you're missing this transition I spent all night on. So yeah, that's my jam.
Do you do After Effects?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it.
I mean, I do a little just because at some point I went freelance in the industry, and so there was a little bit of Avid, a little bit of After Effects. And
fantastic. Well, it's interesting that you're, 8 years, you're rocking, doing your thing. You got your sequences down.
Oh, I'm 13 years in, right? 'Cause I'm
8 years till you got your sequence.
Oh, yeah.
13 total.
Yeah. Isn't that funny, though? 8 years of doing a yoga class before my brain was like, oh, there's this repetitive nature.
You're human.
Yeah.
That's so cool. But it's like when you're doing these classes and when you're doing like teaching all these people, because I feel like, I know personally with yoga, like I've gone to maybe, I don't know, a dozen to 14 to 15. I'm trying to get more into it. Sure. And you feel so embarrassed. Actually, true story. My first yoga class, I signed up for the month trip at Yoga Works, right? Yeah. You get like the Groupon. It was like $39.90. I was like, hell yeah. And I go there and like, I didn't know which class, but I wanted, I'm like, I work out. So I'm like, I could hang. And I did I think Yamasuta or 2 or 3 or something like that. It's like the physical one. What's it called?
I'm not sure.
Oh, damn it. What is it? Okay, well, I did the something level 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And I get there, and I look to my left and look to my right, and they're just freaking yogis staring at me. About 5 minutes into the exercise, I'm trying so hard to hang, and the teacher comes over and taps on my shoulder, and she goes, you don't need to have your socks on. I was so embarrassed.
That's incredible.
I went so red. She calls me out in front of the entire class. I'm like, this is my first class. She goes, oh, hey, everybody. This is Ian's first class. I'm like, all right, cat's out the back. But then afterwards, they were so nice. Everyone was so supportive and cool. And I was like, wow.
Yeah. My practice wouldn't be what it is without the influence of the LA yoga community, for sure.
Does everyone support each other, do you think?
Yes. So one time we were all at a friend's birthday party, and my best friend's dad was there observing, and he's like, you guys are like the top 1% or 2% of the type of people, right? And then so here you've got like Andrew Seeley doing this beautiful, what seems to be like a perfect handstand, hollow back thing. And then 2 or 3 of us will chime in and be like, push through this, engage here, breathe, extension. And he'll take each of it to heart, and he'll adjust as such. And then he'll come down and I'll pop into a back bend, and then same thing, like beautiful expression, but I'll still take everybody's feedback to heart. So my friend's dad observed this, and he's like, I've never seen, you might assume that Andrew might be like, I don't need your feedback. I have the nicest handstands here, but he still takes the feedback and is that much better because of it. So yeah, it's a really special group.
So always in that practice mode, always learning.
And supportive, really. Like you could be doing a handstand that is like seemingly pointless while breakfast is being cooked. And next thing you know, 2 or 3 of us are over giving you cues and saying, push through here, engage here, cheering each other on.
So the poses, they're beautiful. Like people when they're in their element and they get that ocean background, you're like, damn, like that's awesome. Do you feel like yoga is like one of the ultimate forms of expression through like being an artist almost? Like, do you apply your artisticness to yoga?
Yeah, but I think yoga kind of creates some barriers for me. I'd just say movement. Because as a teacher, I'm a big fan of saying like, fuck alignment. I don't think actually doing the exact same alignment many days a week for, 50 years, I don't think that's actually intelligent movement.
Alignment's just like the same old.
Yeah, there's like certain cues in yoga, right? Like 90 degree, make sure your knee is stacked above your ankle, and that's. And I remember a long time ago.
You don't go by the books, basically.
No. I was gonna say, so a long time ago, I came across this Ido Portal video, and he's demonstrating. He's standing up, and he does this. He jumps up and lands with his ankles like bent, right, almost like a rolled ankle. And his thing is, if you're never training those spaces, then when you fall, right, or you enter that space in an accidental manner, that's where injury comes from. So like in yoga, they'll say, always make sure your knee is stacked above your ankle. Never, don't let it splay out, whatever it might be. And I think explore every nook and cranny of your body. Of course, like with practice comes an awareness of your body and the difference between I can't and I don't want to, or this hurts a little, or this is going to be an injury kind of thing. So taking the time to deepen and explore your awareness before you start to push those boundaries, but also like you're your own best teacher, so fuck what anybody else says.
And then like what you do when you're not in the class is probably super important too, right?
Yeah.
It's like people just go to their class and they figure that's the time, but it's like with yoga to be like a masterful, you got to go breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Do you say?
I think it's a lifestyle, right? It's something.
It's calming and relaxing for you. Like if you're ever like freaking out and you just engage into some yoga, are you like boom?
More breath work than yoga asana. To be honest, I've kind of trailed away. So like I do a lot of handstand practice, I do a lot of contortion practice and training, rock climbing, trail running, that kind of thing. But I went to my first yoga asana class, I think like 2 nights ago. It was the first one in maybe 2 months.
How was it?
Oh God, it killed me. The class was called Hot as a Mother. It was hot as a motherfucker. It was so super hot. It was humbling. It was good.
Rock climbing. Do you do like outside rock climbing? Like straight?
Kind of a little.
A little bit.
Yeah, most rock climbers would probably say I'm not a real rock climber. I like bouldering in a gym. I like climbing around on plastic.
This guy's all about bouldering.
Yeah, as an avid rock climber, I see a lot of share pages, posting videos of you hanging upside down doing bat hangs and
Yeah,
stuff.
because I do the goofy stuff that most climbers think like, oh, you're such a show off, or there's this whole dirtbag mentality that seems resistant to the internet culture, and I get it, right? Like climbing it's what they've got. That's their love and passion. And then you have people like me who are like, oh, can I bat hang off this V7? Right. And so, but then it is also it's received well, and it does well on the internet. But I do find like some pushback when I go to a gym that's not mine. They're like, who is this girl bat hanging?
It's a little showboaty, but
yeah.
You got a lot of hobbies, which is really cool. And I think that's so important too. The people that are most happy have a lot of hobbies. It's like their brain's always moving. They're always trying to become masterful at something. So slacklining, you're super into.
I've never been into it really. It was like walk across the string between, and then I was introduced to highlining, and I tend to like safety third, right? Anything that's like really scary and like pushes me to my limits. I've touched on it a little bit. I spent so many years living from fear and being afraid to like speak my voice, give a person a compliment, do the thing I wanted to do, like, really just be embodied. And so things like skydiving and highlining, they really, even like, for instance, running, that is the most boring thing.
So highlining is like you're actually like hanging from a cliff type deal?
Highlining is like slacklining, but like hundreds and hundreds of feet up.
How was your experience with that?
It was on par with skydiving. I would say it was the same adrenaline as like getting ready was like, walking up and setting up. That was equivalent to the flight, and then clipping on and actually going out was equivalent to the door being opened in the plane and being like, all right, it's time to jump.
So it's like fully trusting this rope.
Yeah, a rope and a harness and a little carabiner. I remember I got off the line and I was like, oh shit, I forgot to remind myself that this fear was coming from a sense of like fear of death, right? Because ultimately, like, where is fear coming from? And if we can, I think for me, if I can at least remember that, because it's like this driving force, right? And you're just got this state of panic, like, oh shit, I'm about to do this thing. And if you can just turn around and look at it and be like, oh yeah, I mean, I don't want to die today, but that's where this fear is coming from. You're so much more able to act and be in the moment.
What I like about slacklining is the focus. When you're really just walking across it, I feel like everything around me just kind of dissipates, and I'm just so focused on one foot in front of the other. And even before that is just finding the balance to even get to that level of focus. So with highlining, how much of a distraction is that canyon below you?
I mean, on a normal slackline, I can do things like pistol squat and like a little like arm variation balance. I wasn't actually even willing to unclip and stand up way out in the middle. So it was, for me, my experience was just going out, letting go of the rope and hanging in a back bend. And that was enough for me. But as soon as I got back in, I was like, damn it, I should have done more.
But I think that's the beauty of slackline, because a lot of people, especially when I set up just out by the bay or whatever, people want to get on and just immediately start walking. But the first step is balancing, then that leads into the steps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think with the highline, what you did your first time is just getting comfortable and being in that situation. And now next time, let's take some steps, right?
Yeah. Or even just unclip and kind of push away from the line and let the line catch you and have that trust fall.
All right. You guys are both absolutely crazy. So you can chill on that.
Come on, Jones.
I'm just going to stay grounded. You know what I'm saying? We'll start with skydiving when I have a homie strapped to me. So at least we're both going down if things get up,
Do you do solo skydiving?
No, I'm on my 8th one and my 8th tandem. They joke with me that I'm not allowed to do any more tandems. They're like, what are you doing? But, it's been a work in progress.
So I think something that's super cool about your ideology is this whole conquering fear concept, right? Mm-hmm. Like one of my favorite quotes by Joseph Campbell is like, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasures that you seek, right? I think every day we're constantly thinking about something that scares us. And the idea of getting up and doing it is the ultimate release of all that built up anxiety that's flooding us. So making an art, making a practice of falling in love with conquering fear, I mean, that seems like something that is just so worldly that everyone should strive for.
Thank you. I don't know how I've been so blessed to find myself in this space, but I do know that like I can look back over the past few years and see how beautiful my life has transitioned, how beautifully rather my life has transitioned when you just look at every action, every interaction and emotion, it can boil down, right? And it whittles down to either love or fear. And just making it your honest and earnest intention every day to everything comes from love, right? Somebody cuts you off, you like, and it's become this thing of how quickly can I have the trigger, and then like you have your moment between it, and then your reaction time. Like, can I expand that time, and can I get to that reaction of love quicker? Can I come back to it? So it's like life's just a big game. And every day before I leave my front door, I'm like, all right, let's do this. Like,
when you talk about love, how many different forms of love do you think there are?
Ooh, that's a great question. I often think that there are two, right? Like I start in love and I have love for everything. And then I work my way either out of that love and into like, oh, that person's kind of an asshole, or that experience wasn't so great.
So you give everyone the benefit of the doubt.
Sure. Like I think for me, I've come to it's like start in love, earn trust, right? Trust is to be earned and love is to be given freely. Kind of the opposite. Everybody goes in trusting and like holding on to this love and like, oh no. I think we can all move along a lot faster, grow faster, right? And experience more when we can just let that trust be earned, but let the love just flow. And then I think there's the love where you share with like your partner, right? I think that's probably the one love. And then maybe there's like 2.5 because your family and your kin are somewhere in between.
I find that to be different than a romantic love.
Yeah.
The love you have for your family.
And it's a little bit stronger than what I'd have for the average person. So maybe, 2.5 kinds.
Do you believe in the whole soulmate deal?
No.
Me neither. I think there's
No.
hundreds of people that you're compatible with,
Yeah.
and that if time and space puts that person in front of you, dope. But like,
You always come from love or fear, right? And so if you're no longer fully committed to that person and that was your original sort of agreement, then you would be coming from fear if you didn't speak your truth.
so this is something I'm really curious about, because when we first got on the phone, you just had this energy about you that is so infectious, and like people listening to this episode can hear it, like boom, like you're just feeding into the soul, right? I don't think you're just born with that. I think you have to like learn that. Like, I think you've been through some serious shit. Like, I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like you have like a deep story that like you've had to conquer a lot of fears in order to get to this energy. And I think this energy is inside a lot of people, but you've kind of done a ton of soul searching. Is there kind of a time that you've personally possibly like hit rock bottom that you can touch on, that almost just like, it's kind of like hanging at the lowest end of your belly when you're doing the stomach stretch thing. You're like, I'm just trying to get this thing out, you know?
Yeah, I think there were so many times. It was like, but it took, maybe it was like a many of them combined. Like, what's that? I'm trying to think of like condensed or consolidated, right? So after like years and years of it, just struggling with depression and suicidal thoughts. And I mean, as far back in like, I was like 4 years old the first time I thought like, I hate myself. I don't like myself. And then it would be last summer. Last summer, I remember getting to the point where I was like, oh man, if I don't change my routine and reach out and have some major shifts, I might actually kill myself. So it was around, I remember I smashed my bong and I quit drinking and I reached out to a bunch of friends and I got super active and I stopped seeing the person I was seeing and just really shifted a lot.
Was this at a time when people might look at you and say, wow, she's got her shit fully figured out?
Of course. I think from an outside perspective, you see like a pretty girl who like models for Aloe and, you know, has like a following on Instagram. Everything must be fucking fantastic, right? No. And I remember I wrote a post. I wrote something to the tune of like, oh, today I can touch my feet to my head, but today I hate myself. Asana doesn't matter or something, right? And it's just, that's one of the, I feel so blessed to have the struggle that I do, but also be in this meat suit that I'm in and have the opportunities that I have to sort of destigmatize depression and suicidal thoughts. And, you know, really like the hustle, the work that it takes to get to a certain place.
Do you think that there's almost like a certain thing that people can do that are in that moment, that are in that feeling of pure sadness, pure depression, suicidal, because so many people are there, right?
Yeah.
You know, we all think we're so individualized.
Yeah.
Everyone's pretty fucked up, right?
Yeah. If you're a human existing in the human experience, you've experienced some level of depression.
Do you think that there's a certain thing that you just wish you could tell certain people that are feeling that? Like go here or do this. Because one thing that's dope about you is you're super open about this shit.
Yeah, man.
You're so real, and like that's going to hit people because there's so many people looking at you and saying, wow, like I wish I could talk about that. And if you talked about it, you could probably get help. People don't talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, especially being, I'm not quote unquote, I'm not looked at as like an average person, even though I'm more average than you would ever fucking assume. We all are. Anybody who says otherwise is lying. It's like people think that I must be so happy. And I love breaking their little perception bubble and being like, no, last year I wanted to kill, and that it's not linear, right? Next week I might be sad again. Who fucking knows? Who knows? So, man, if I could tell, I would say like, okay, if you're at that spot where just no one understands and nothing matters and what's the fucking point of life? Like, get up, get outside, get moving for a mile, right? Whether it's running or walking. And then during that time, make eye contact with at least 10 people and smile and hold that eye contact, find some sustained connection with somebody.
Yeah. Get that vitamin D.
Yeah.
Get the sun.
Yeah.
Feel the vibes.
Because you get out of your space, get out of the vibes, wherever you're in, get out of there, get some fresh air, and you're going to have a shift in perspective. Even if it's just, I'm not saying like you're going to get to the top of the Empire State Building. It might just be 1 or 2 stairs, but it'll get you moving to that next thing. And you're like, well, maybe I'll text Lisa and we'll go to lunch tomorrow. Next thing you know, you're getting dressed up rather than sitting in bed depressed and you're going to lunch.
Isn't that crazy that like if you're sick and you're feeling down and you're feeling low and you think to yourself, shit, should I go and get that Uber to the homie's house? Like,
and that's the hardest step, right?
You're like, oh, but then once you're there, you almost 9 out of 10 times will say almost always feel like it was worth it.
Yeah.
Just getting yourself and pushing yourself out there. Mm-hmm. Also, why we love animals.
Yeah.
I just think animals was the answer.
Yeah, getting my dog was a really good decision.
I'm torn right now. I'm torn if I want to get the cat. My big issue is this too. Like our apartment situation. Like I grew up with outdoor cats, and like I'm all about the cat coming in and out, and like homies are killing chipmunks and stuff. And I'm just, But like an indoor cat, I don't know how I feel about it.
I don't want to deal with fleas, man. If I'm living with you, I don't want fleas.
Yeah, Skylar has this wild, half wild cat that comes in and brought fleas into his house.
He brought some fleas into the place. It wasn't fun.
You need some flea medicine.
Yeah, a flea collar. Skylar, you need a flea collar. Put one on
Put one on me, dude. Slap it around my neck. Come on.
Bracelets.
That's so cool. Well, there's always like people are always constantly trying to get into routines that help them, right? Always. It's something where we wake up and every day we're doing the same thing. You just mentioned you get up, you get out, you do your things. Is there I'm sure you've tried many different routines and all the health crazes in the world, like matcha tea and whatever it is. Is there certain things that you like live and die by? Like in the morning, you're like what is a typical day in the life, would you say, to feel at the maximum like Aubry Jonesiness?
Yeah. Aubry Jonesiness. I love that. Hydrate. Breathe, set intentions.
I like to say that people go throughout the day without actually sitting down and breathing. It's all they're on autopilot, but to really just sit down and focus on breathing is just so beneficial.
Yeah. I mean, 5 minutes of some conscious breathing, like maybe half real slow and calm and intentional, and the half is kind of like hyperventilation-y to get you going. And then a minute afterward of just sitting with that new clarity, that shift in your headspace, and think like just a gentle reminder that everyone you're going to interact with is their kind of drawing from these source emotions, right? Who, like our mom hurt our feelings when we were 6. And so now your interaction in the office is still stemming from that space of the hurt child, and remembering that, like to have compassion and be kind and calm and loving with yourself and with everyone else.
Yeah, right. So touching into that, something I'm always trying to work on is getting this brain set, right? Because if we can control our brain, we can control our life, and that's the hardest thing. Like I talked to, recently I've had a pretty shitty experience. I had LASIK eye surgery, right? It's typically fantastic. I asked 170,000 people beforehand how good it was. I never heard more 10-star reviews. No Amazon Prime product could have beat it. And I got the surgery, and I had a stomach issue called SIBO at the time, which is why I'm really curious to hear about that Nauli stuff.
Okay.
I don't know, clearing out your stuff. But basically, when I got the surgery, my eyes never recovered, and I never regrew my corneal nerves. So like I'm going through this super terrible-ish thing where it's like at night, it's like a crazy halo fest. And it's like really been effing with my brain, because it's like every day you open your eyes, you're faced with some visual disturbance. So I've really, and it's kind of been amazing because I'm working with Dr. Joe Dispenza. Big shout out, Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
Dude's all about like mastering your mind.
Yeah.
How you can literally change your thoughts. And like when you see something, sometimes you see something that scares you, you go into that reprogramming. And every time you see it, it freaks you the fuck out. Like that's how I feel when I see like this night thing with the halos and stuff and all that. But ever since I've been slowly working on like stopping that trigger and realizing like I'm okay, everything's okay. Like it's really been amazing. Like the mind control. I still got ways to go, but what are your thoughts on like being able to control your mind? Do you think meditation helps you get there?
Sure. God, I think that everything that I've experienced was just to get me to breathwork and meditation. Everything built into that, because that's where the real shifts happen. Like I used to be a really big asshole. Like I've thrown bricks through windows and I've like flown off the handle in ways that like, oh my, just super embarrassing, right? And it wasn't like nailing a handstand that made me a nicer person. It wasn't getting my feet to my head. Like I was still an asshole. It's definitely been breathwork and meditation. And almost like, God, I don't know. It was almost like a complete rewiring or a paradigm shift, right? And mostly, like I touched on earlier, lengthening that moment between when I'm triggered and when I react. And the longer I can lengthen it, the more likely I am my reaction to be, rather than 100%, I come through at like 20%.
That's a great thought process. And it's kind of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Mm-hmm. You know, realizing like that lengthening. I like how you put that there, because it's like when the neurons fire from the brain to the body. Because Dr. Joe Dispenza, he always talks about the idea that your body by like the age of say 35 becomes almost programmatic in itself. And like you're 5% conscious and like 95% your body. That's like if you can't remember someone's phone number, but you take your phone out, like you consciously do it. Or like the lock, if you're like trying to open up your gym locker, you go 13, 14, 15. You can't remember, but all of a sudden your brain's just doing it.
Yeah, like I don't know somebody's username off the top of my head, but if I go to Instagram, I'm like, and then you can start to visualize those moments, right? Those compartmentalized memories.
It's so crazy how if we can like trigger those things, we can become super people.
Yeah. So it's almost like my interacting self is the child self, and then above I've got this like thinking conscious self, and I'm like watching her. I'm like, how quickly can she come back and kind of like settle? Because
I have a question. You're talking about how maybe one week you're happy, the next week you're feeling a little out of whack. Does social media have any influence on how you're feeling throughout the week?
Well, a long time ago, I realized that I had to avoid social media when I was feeling down, because literally I would even find old photos of myself, or my own Instagram profile would make me feel unworthy. Like, oh, you've just been depressed in bed for 3 days. Like, this person's starting a business, and last week you were in Jamaica. Like,
Love Jamaica.
I do too. So it's interesting when I realized that I was comparing even to myself and my past experiences and to where I am in that moment. So probably about a year and a half ago, I learned that I just avoid Instagram. So if you ever see me disappear for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time, I'm either at Burning Man or having a bout, right? And then other than that, I'd say it's really inspirational. I've done a great job of curating people that uplift me and empower me and inspire me. And so I'll like stick my toe back in the water, and I'm like, oh, there's Adele doing this amazing thing. She's coming out with a new training. And then for me, it's like, all right, got to get back into work mode, Aubry.
It's like that energy too. Like the second it's like, oh, I just fell off, I got to get back on. You got to find those triggers of people that get you back on. Because when you're in your power, like that's the greatest feeling ever, right? And every day you have the opportunity to get into your power, into your mojo.
Yeah. To just like turn the magic up.
Turn the magic on. When you're at the gym and you're listening to music, what type of music you listening to? What's your jam?
In the last 6 months, my entire life has shifted, to be honest. And I don't think we have enough time to talk about all of the finer points as to why. But one of the big shifts is music. I always used to listen to the nastiest hip hop if it cursed and it was like icky and it just made you want to twerk. That was my jam. And then it's totally shifted to love bit, like Avicii. Like I'm listening to those
Levels, baby.
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe not that one, but
that's too old, but
yeah. But yeah, I never liked like house music or that kind of like higher, happy up kind of. I liked very guttural, kind of like low vibey music. So now I'd say it's like something really hyped and upbeat, something you might experience at like Lightning in a Bottle, or I don't know.
Do you think that like deep house, like music, when you're doing a yoga thing and you're teaching, does music help open up people to kind of feel more comfortable and maybe even perform better?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that like maybe a very seasoned practitioner might thrive in silence, but I think that the average human is gonna anytime, right? Even if you're just literally laying on the ground watching the clouds and like some love song comes on, right? It enriches and deepens kind of the process. It's like another sense.
I'm not the best person to ever ask about music. I'm like fully in love with like 90s hip hop, 2000s hip hop. Like T-Pain is my.
You don't say with the neon. And
T-Pain's my jam. Oh my god, I play it like probably every day.
Love it.
But yeah, Hip Hop Police. Oh my gosh.
Whenever I show up to Jones' apartment, there's T-Pain blaring. He's in a neon lacrosse penny. I'm like, all right, Jones, let's get you ready for the podcast, bro. Put the polo on.
Buy You a Drink by T-Pain, greatest song ever. There it is.
That's his theme song.
So
to the window, to the walls.
Oh, there it is. Drop it low. But here's the thing that's really interesting, and we talk about this with all different high performers and people that are maybe starting businesses. You can chew those almonds, you know.
Oh my god.
Aubrey's eating almonds. We're getting crunchy. But it's really interesting to think about like different performers, whether they be someone that loves animals and is at the, you know, following their dreams. Like there's one girl, Lisa Kitasaho, was recently on the podcast, and she at, 21 years old, moved to South Africa and raises and rehabilitates cheetahs. That's what she does. She's now, I think, 26, 27, and that's what she does on a day-to-day basis. And it's like people dream of doing stuff outside their comfort zone, but they're making moves. Or someone that's starting a business, and like that's scary, just the idea of being on your own is terrible. And then there's just a lot of things, but I'm curious when you could look back at your life now. I mean, you've had a plethora of experience. I mean, you've seen the industry and the yoga community from both ends, from like the high, from the low. I mean, you said you grew up super poor, you're doing good, but if you could go back in time, maybe, I guess in your stance, maybe right before you got kicked out of high school, and you could have said 1, 2, or maybe 3 things that like the older you could have said, listen, girl, I got like 5 minutes to talk.
Yeah.
What were some things that you'd probably tell yourself?
I would reassure myself that that the world isn't against me, that the universe is conspiring for me, and that the longer I continue to go out into the world like ready for battle, that's what the universe is going to give me, because it loves me so much so that whatever it is I ask for, that's what I'm going to get. And so I would just tell myself to soften the fuck up, love a lot more, and trust.
Trust more.
Yeah, trust, love, and soften.
Trust, love, and soften.
Yeah, man.
You don't gotta be so hard. Soften up, homie.
Yeah, I was like, I used to like punch walls when I was upset, and I've broken my phone more times than I can count. And
so you were very reactive, kind of like something happens to you,
like
just
fiery, like a volcano fire.
just something deep from your like childhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Something. Or I don't know, I spoke with this spiritual channeler in February who claims that it's all ancestral, and that I was this like really powerful shaman earthbender. Who knows?
Earthbender?
Yeah.
Did you ever see Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Of course I saw it.
Oh my god, I love the show. Katara.
Yeah, man.
You got some Katara
Do you
in
think
you.
so?
Jones's dream girl is Katara.
So that's like, yeah, that's one of the things I was telling you. So much magic has happened in the last 6 months, and it's like there aren't really even words for it. I got to compete on American Ninja Warrior.
Yeah, tell us about that. So you're just chilling one day, and all of a sudden you're like, "Yo, we out here? Let's do it."
Yeah, I got a DM from them last year, and then this year asking if I'd ever be interested in trying out. And I'm like, well, I have a couple friends who've done it, and they're really strong. And last year I was like, no. And then this year I was like, fuck it, it's just free publicity. I'll try it. Why not? What's the worst that could happen? I fall off on the first round, and I got a great experience out of it. So, but yeah, I submitted my video.
So you're just like, hey, what's up? I'm Obs. I'm trying to do this.
Yeah, I just did a cut of all my Instagram stuff and my climbing tricks and my bat hands.
Because you have to get chosen.
Yeah. I did all so basically the production team was doing some scouting for Ninja Warrior. So they reached out and I turned in my video. And so I find myself I was down in Mexico, and I met with the spiritual channeler, intuitive guy. And later that night, it was maybe like 6 hours later, I got the call from American Ninja Warrior saying, hey, you've been accepted. I was like,
You're like, oh shit, what did I just do?
Right. And the magic just didn't stop from there. Like 3 or 4 more really beautiful and synchronistic events popped up. And then of course I did American Ninja Warrior, and it's just been kind of like you said earlier, it was an unlock, and it's just been like unlock after unlock after unlock.
I think that's got to be the title of this podcast, like unlocking.
The unlock, like, right.
Unlocking the unlock. Finding that key, becoming the key to your unlock.
Yeah, unlocking through love.
When you actually did that, when you were like right on the podium, what was that feeling like? Rush of adrenaline? Like, is your muscle memory on point, or are you all like, it's almost like you're drunk and you're just sending it?
I would liken it to a dream, because my brain, there was so much stimulation that audio started to sound like I had cups over my ears, and I only have memories of specifically what I was looking at. So I remember like seeing like a big screen, and I was like, that's me. Like everything was very diminished. Like I would, there wasn't, and then at some point I like looked over to the audience, and then the audio became full blast.
Did you find that like the people in the American Ninja Warrior were people you vibed with hard?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've met some really just people that I know will be best friends for a lifetime. And I'm like, oh, this is where these amazing, crazy, adventurous, like, almost like mildly masculine, like unstoppable women have been hiding. Cause I'm always like, get along more with the boys. You know what I mean? I'm like, you guys, let's go climb this thing. And all my girlfriends like, okay, Aubry.
Was there a certain task out of all those, or different, I don't know what you'd call them, different stages?
Like obstacles?
Yeah, obstacles.
Yeah.
My bad. Obstacles that like were for sure the hardest that you struggled with?
Well, obviously the one I fell off on.
Which one was that?
The second obstacle. No, it's just, honestly, it was all mental. Like if I could do that obstacle course in the peak of my power, I would do it no problem. Mm-hmm. Like I think that I have the strength and the agility and the endurance, but it was mental.
Would you do it again?
Oh, 100%. I've been training for it.
You are?
Yeah. Although, like I said, the one thing that you can't train for is the like, you know what I mean? The way you react
to the actual thing.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, it's funny. I think everyone, when they watch American Ninja Warrior, they're like, yo, I got this.
Oh, that's so easy.
Like yeah, no. Are you kidding? Give me some monkey bars. I'm straight climbing.
No, man. Not when you have like 7 cameras in your face and producers yelling at you to run this direction.
Oh, man. And people holding up their forearms for so long. You're just praying mantis. You're like, your arms are just firing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my God.
And I've never, having the spotlight on me, having a lot of attention on me is still, I used to think it was fear of public speaking, but it turns out it's the attention, right? Almost like a lack of worthiness. Like, oh, I don't deserve to get all this attention.
Interesting.
I think I don't consciously think that, but deep down it's stemming from somewhere, right?
So you're in the midst of a breakthrough right now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, I'm so stoked. I'm stoked to see you in the journey.
Yeah. I can't wait to talk to you in like 2 years. I'll be a different human.
It's important to have those goals, though, right? Like you're working your way up into this thing. Like this is stoking you. I feel like people that are currently at a low, they just don't have anything that's stoking them. Right? Like for me, I love fish. I'm obsessed with fish. Aquariums. I'm just throwing it out there.
I thought you're like the type of thing, like you're telling me what you like to eat. I'm like, yeah, cool.
I mean, I pokey, homie. I'm all about that pokey. But fish, I don't know, it calms me down. Like when I was younger, I had a fish tank cleaning business. Ian's Fish Tank Cleaning. Shout out to like my 12 customers. Big homies. But it was just like being able to have a hobby and just like dive into it and be obsessed with like just the little tiny things. I mean, that's how people become masters, right? Like you love yoga. You love it. I mean, unless you're just the best liar of all time. I don't think so.
I love movement. I love filling my body. I like finding points of failure and refining them. I like proving to myself how fucking strong I've become or how bendy I've become. Like that is cool, right? To be able to look back at your practice and just know it's this physical manifestation of hours spent. And it doesn't lie. Like you can look at before and after photos and know like, oh, that's the difference between working a little bit every day or just not and kind of waiting for it to come. And then also, right, it's like in our modern society, we know that so much of what we do is just like we're replaceable. We're just cogs in this sort of puzzle, in this game. And we're almost like self-prescribing passions or reasons to exist in a day. Like if we all existed, you know, in a tribe on some land way back when, it was like you were the hunter and gatherer, I was the babysitter, maybe somebody else was, I don't know, right? They like, I don't know, I'm running out of tasks, but you get the point. Yeah. It's like every day you wake up and you had you were very needed. Mm-hmm. and
you had a purpose.
Yeah, a deep purpose and something that wasn't replaceable. mostly right.
I feel like today, like the longhouse lifestyle, we're going back to Native Americans. Imagine like living with like 4 families. Imagine like every day one family had to like make dinner. You'd have the most fire dinner every single day.
And you'd feel so much love and connection.
Yeah.
I think really you're the most fat, like you're still on food.
Just trying to get some good eats. But yeah, the connection, right?
Yeah, man. But yeah, now it's like, could you imagine like in that setting, everybody had their own little miniature teepee and you just would like text like, you know, it's like, it's broken.
Right. It's interesting. It's funny, like the different shows that humans are attracted to in media. Like if you just think about all the shows that went viral and everyone tunes into, like for my mom and dad, Naked and Afraid. Yeah. That's their show. They can't stop watching it. And the whole time they're like, my dad's just like, look at this idiot. look at this freaking, oh my, what? Oh, wow, this guy's terrible. Like, and he's just always making fun of him, but he can't get enough of it.
Yeah. That's my parents with American Ninja Warrior.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so you must have made their life when that happened.
They were just a little excited.
Did they have like a whole party for when you went on?
Oh, they told everybody. They bought all the clothes. Like, they're such dorks. So, like, my mom still wears her. Anybody who's like, they comment on it, she's like, my daughter was on American Ninja Warrior.
Are you tight with your family?
With my mom. She's cool. I love her a lot. It's funny, growing up, we did not get along. We've even like fist fought and all the things. And now we FaceTime every day for a minimum of like 20 minutes, sometimes like an hour and a half. And my dad's like, he'll leave and come back and he's like, are you guys still fucking on the phone? Like, what even are you talking about? My mom's like, everything and nothing.
Everything and nothing.
Yeah.
Great line.
And then my brother, funny enough, I think we use similar modalities to get our jobs done, but what we do couldn't be more. He's a EOD in the Air Force, so the explosive ordnance disposal. The guys that
Is he the guy walking around looking for the bombs?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Right.
Oh man.
And,
wow.
But it's so
Those
funny.
guys
to
are the
think,
most
like,
crazy,
I know.
crazy dudes on the planet.
I know. But so that he has to be like calm and zen and centered to do his job right. And it's something so wildly different than mine, but I love that we have to take the same kind of essence in our way of being.
Those dudes are really crazy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know this one guy he's an EOD. We're talking this one time. And he said he had this buddy who was also an EOD, and he would fill up his jackets with a ton of candy, and people would look at him like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, if I'm gonna blow up, it's gonna be a pinata." What a savage.
That's hilarious.
It's such a savage.
I love it.
But yeah, I mean, that's amazing. But so it's cool that I'm the same way with my dad. Shout out Papa Jones.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, my dad's a good guy. We're just, you know what it is the self-work that I've done and all of those pieces about myself that I've sort of, I don't want to be so fucking ego. It's like, oh, I fixed it. But I've done so much work. They're his strongest features. Right. And so there he is at 61, still needing, I love you, Dad, no offense, but still needing to do so much work. And I think it probably, you know, I think like on the surface level, I'm like, well, you're an asshole, so I don't like you. But I think it just triggers things where I'm like, man, that was me. Right. We oftentimes don't like people that either have things about us that are part of our personalities that we don't like, or things we've gotten rid of that we don't want to come back. Mm-hmm. So reactiveness and judginess and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah. If you had to pick one item for Naked and Afraid, because I have to go back, what would be your item?
I've never seen this show.
So basically the idea is that each person can only bring one item, right? So like an axe or like a teapot or like, for me, I'm doing a mosquito net. Yeah. Because I can't do mosquitoes. That would tap out first day if you're getting eaten alive.
Can I bring like an ounce of weed? Can that be my thing on Naked and
There it is. Boom. Greatest answer ever. She makes it 41 days. She grows an entire weed farm. She ends up... Imagine that. Wow. The game changer right there.
Yeah. They'd call it the Naked and Alive. Was it Naked and Afraid?
Naked and Afraid, yeah.
What a horrible title, first of all.
You're literally naked.
Naked and Afraid. It'd be a strain.
Yeah, baked and afraid. Yeah, she's going to bring an ounce of weed, and I'm going to bring a large pizza.
Is that a thing if they don't slice it? It's just one thing.
Yeah, I think Joe Rogan and... no, not Joe Rogan. Seth, James Franco... and Seth Rogen, they did a spoof on Naked and Afraid, and it was something like that. One of the funniest duos in all time. But it's
Pizza
insane.
and weed. I love it.
To see, I just found out Postmates has a 99 cents deal recently, and like I always hated on people that like, you're ordering food to your house, get out of here. Like, seriously, dude. 99 cents delivery. That's how I lived in Colombia, in Medellin. It was so sick. You get anything you wanted for 99 cents, like the best restaurants, Uber Eats, boom, to your door. It's a game changer.
I have so many more questions. I feel like that'll be a very long tangent. Maybe I'll ask you that in us time, but
my Spanish is getting a little bit better, so we can start there.
Okay.
It's much more Jesus-y, much more beardy. But yeah, I mean, very interesting. It's really cool to hear. And the one thing that I'm just by looking at your feed and something that I've seen that like you are shared all the time on.
I totally thought you just said my feed. I was like, you're looking at my feed? That's so weird.
Was not, for the record, was not looking at the feet, but now I am. So it might be weird.
All right, my feed. Keep going.
We're talking that breathing thing you got
Sure.
going on. I think
Nauli.
it's Nauli. Yeah.
Nauli.
How do you pronounce it?
Nauli.
Nauli.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not like a Sanskrit master.
Where did it originate?
So it's a Kriya. It's a cleansing exercise.
Okay.
It's part of yoga, right? Have you ever seen where you put the water in the nose?
I did that.
Neti
Yeah.
potting?
I
Yeah.
did that yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, the
The
sinus
neti
rinse.
pot.
Yeah, neti.
Oh, is that the same thing that
Not
I
what
did?
you had now.
Oh, okay. Never
Neti's
mind. I just did a sinus rinse.
Did you use like a salt water and mixture and run it through your nasal cavity?
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. But so they're just all cleansing techniques. There's some other really weird ones where you like roll up like, I think it's like a bamboo leaf up your butt and then take in water, and it's kind of like what is that? A cloth?
An enema?
Maybe it's more like an enema, huh?
An enema?
But then there's one too where you like, I think you like maybe you swallow a piece of cheesecloth and they pull it back up, and it's all very
So
interesting.
with the Nauli thing though, being
They are. Google them. Google Kriya. There's some really interesting ones out there.
damn, that's
I remember watching a Jackass movie one time, and they were putting leeches on their eyes. And apparently, that's a holistic
on their
form of
eyes.
healing. Yeah,
That's not holistic.
I've seen something like that
it was
where
in
they
India,
did.
so
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. They did like a ghee butter. They pour butter clear on into the eyes, and then I think there was something else about the leeches.
Yeah, leeches.
Yeah. It's pretty intense.
All
But
right.
so Nauli.
Yeah, let's start with Nauli. Jesus, you know, psychos. But yeah, Nauli. So
Yeah.
like, you're a lot of people. How do you do it? What are you doing? Like, you're straight up like, is this something that you work on? Because it seems like when you're doing it, you're really freaking doing
Sure.
it. Like,
Well, I've been able to, it wasn't something I had to learn how to do. I, like perfecting the rhythm and the fluidity of it is something I've gotten better at. But I remember being like 4 years old and my mom and dad are like, what the fuck are you doing? Keep in mind, my dad's like this construction worker from Louisiana and my mom's this handicap, she has cerebral palsy from New Mexico. Neither of them are like remotely physical or active or, athletic. And so they're both just like, where did this kid come from? And I would snort floss and then like
Get it,
spit it back.
like-
yeah. And that's another one.
have you ever seen people do that with like? I think I've seen someone do that with like a real live snake or something.
That's
like that.
intense.
Yeah,
I've
but
done it with floss and spaghetti. But so, and then so at some point I wanted to teach it because it became, people were constantly like, that's cool that you can do it, but teach me how to do it. So I spent a lot of time just working with my own body and cues, and then kind of taking that into, asking a friend, and some of them are hit or miss. Some of my friends are like, that didn't teach me anything, or, oh, there it is. That was the unlock.
So hold up. So
Yeah.
you're taking spaghetti, or like a spaghetti noodle, and you're going all the way from into the nose, out the mouth, and it's actually a sign of being able to control your body. That's like what you're trying to accomplish there.
Sure. I guess but it would be a cleansing, right? So it's a way to like cleanse the nasal cavity. And then the one where you like swallow the cheesecloth, I guess it's a cleansing of the esophagus.
Sounds like someone that could go horribly wrong. So the Nauli thing, do you do it before you work out?
Yeah, no, I mean, I do it. It's like there's different applications, what's your why? But mostly the most effective time I'd say is like first, like between 10 and 11, if you haven't eaten and you're super fasted and kind of like light in that space. Oh, it's so accessible. And then as a female, there's times in the month where there's like more or less bloating going on and things can feel a little bit more difficult to connect or to like really engage and pull it up and in. And in fact, in almost all the teachings you'll find about Nauli, they urge women not to do it when they're on or near their period, and to only do it with this like seasoned practitioner. And again, it's like, well, if it doesn't hurt, fuck it,
Right.
try it.
So like,
Was-
how would you? Can someone learn it like quick?
It depends. I've seen all types. I've seen somebody come into a class and leave with like a little bit of movement, right? 2 hours of a workshop later. And then I've seen people where, like my roommate, I think she's just getting to Uddiyana, like a nice up and in. So there's a few stages, right? So what I was just referring to is just this one.
What's that stage? Oh yeah, you're breathing.
Yeah. That's going to be your first step, right? Through the Uddiyana Bandha,
The
up
Uddiyana
and in,
Bandha.
or like your weightlifters. Yeah. The weightlifters of the world would just refer to it as a vacuum.
Okay.
Like a vacuum or an Uddiyana Bandha is the Sanskrit term for it.
And then what's the second step?
Well, from there, you might learn to isolate, right? So then you start to take in alternating pressure from left to right, and that's going to sort of allow one side to disengage. Then from there, you start to bring a rhythm into it and really move it. Or there might even be, you might start working with longer holds. Like maybe movement isn't accessible right away, so you work with longer 20-second, 15-second holds of that vacuum. And
Does this help with core strength too?
that is actually where I've always been able to do it, and I knew that it was kind of like an ancient cleansing technique, but I found that for core activation, like let's say I'm on set and I've been sitting in hair and makeup for 2 hours, and then they're like, go for Aubry, can you do a handstand, right? And everything is kind of disengaged and a little lazy. I'll turn to my Nauli practice for about 2 or 3 minutes, a little bit of like hyperventilation, kind of like in out, really using the core to fire the breath. And then boom, everything's kind of, my transverse is turned on and my handstand practice is totally different.
Transverse?
Yeah.
What is transverse?
The TVA.
Okay.
They're like the corset muscle, right? The all around.
So if you can control those muscles, that's like a huge step to be able to get to like the next level, to be able to do some of the like the really gnarly poses.
Yeah. A lot of that engagement, and right, if you can disengage, then you can engage for the most part. And a lot of those skills are what you need for stability in handstands and stability in, or even just the press itself, pressing the handstand. And that's all wonderful, but really for longevity of your spine, like for when you're like 60 and you go to bend down to grab something and you don't get that like weird tweak, right? It's just going to keep everything in and tight and healthy. So it's really for everyone. Like, my dad had a motorcycle accident and they had to go in through his belly to get down to the femoral artery. And so like, I don't eat for my abs or work out for my abs. They're very much so genetic, and it's from my dad's side. And after this accident, it's just kind of like hanging, like very poochy, right? Almost. Right. And
it's pooching.
Right. It's and I've recommended for him, like, yeah, you've got your traditional rehab and they're doing what they can for you. But I kind of showed him a few, and he's like, oh my goodness. He says he's sore the next day after working with just vacuums, nothing animated.
Do you do the intermittent fasting?
Do I?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Are you into fasting?
I just find, like, I didn't even realize that a lot of what I do, I just do because it feels good or it's natural, right? I didn't even realize that not eating till 11 every day was a thing, and it's it's a whole sort of like, I don't know what you call it.
What's the longest you've ever fasted?
Oh shit, like a fast?
Fast.
I did the master cleanse a long time ago when I was like probably like 22, and it's like 10 days.
Jesus. Yeah. 10 days just water?
Yeah. Well, it's like whatever the mixture is. It's like cayenne and water and lemon and whatever. Syrup.
Would you recommend it?
I don't know if I know enough on health.
I think it's so fascinating though, people that are constantly like biohacking their body.
Yeah.
And like mixing technology with.
I think you know what I would recommend? I'd recommend always shaking up your routine and trying things that are different and out of the norm, because you never know. Do I feel confident to like recommend to the public that everyone should fast? No, just because I don't know enough and I don't know their stories. You never know how people are going to take it and in what direction. But for me, they're incredible. Like, it's a reset.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, I know this is something that we ask everybody that comes on the show, you know what I'm saying? I mean. This is for everyone out there that's, maybe they're right on the brink of making a big decision in their life. Most likely for the sake of possibly, typically, if we're speaking entrepreneurship, we're talking about quitting the 9-to-5 that you might not be fully appreciated at or whatever, and then going off and doing your own thing. Maybe, you have this job that's sucking the soul out of you. You're not happy. You're not feeling it. You're like, damn. But like, there's something that you want to do. Maybe raise raise cheetahs in South Africa, or just go do Nauli and start doing your thing, whatever. Or you want to start your own business. You want to just break out, but something's holding you back. That fear of what if, I got responsibilities. What could go wrong? A million things could go wrong, and you're so stuck in your head. Or the person that's crushing it, and maybe like how you were maybe 6 months prior, where on the outside you're crushing it, but on the inside you're really going through like a mental hurdle, and you're really just looking to step out into that fear and conquer it. What would you say to that person that's right on the edge of kind of taking the first step into a new venture or into like a new hobby that scares them?
Well, first of all, just don't overthink it, because eventually your logic brain is going to talk you out of it. And then of course, like what would 80-year-old version of you say? Is 80-year-old version of you going to be stoked that you played it safe, or are they going to be like, you fucking idiot? Right? What did you do with the last 40 years or 50 years? Always thinking of your future self.
Yeah.
Do the raddest shit possible, basically. So you can look back and be like, oh, that might have been dangerous or stupid at the time, but hey, it's a good memory now.
Yep. Safety third. Nothing's permanent.
I like that.
I don't know about y'all with that radish. I'm just going to go hang out in the middle of the Grand Canyon or whatever. Just slack. Yo, bro, I'm living. I'm like, oh my God. Just get anxiety thinking about it. Yeah. Savages.
Well,
but you're
more likely to die in a car wreck.
That is so true.
Right. And it comes back to the mental sort of like, what have we decided is okay? Like, we're slowly dying. We should be afraid of Netflix. We should be afraid of slowly dying and not really living, right? And where do you put your energy? If you quantified every fucking pointless scroll you've ever done and then took that and turned it into a foreseeable skill, like learning a language or learning a new movement, even just maybe helping another fucking person, go to a nursing home and just spend time with old people. Like, how many hours and where would you be? What would your shift be? How much more love would you have in your life?
It all comes down to love. There it is.
Man. Yeah, one of my favorite cards. I draw like moon cards, right, or tarot cards.
You do the tarot cards.
It's the moon deck is what it's called. But yeah, they're kind of like intention setting cards, but they're really intuitive.
Really?
It's interesting. I mean, of course, I think that horoscopes and such, like, they can apply to you or they could not, right? It just depends on where you are with
I like that.
Is it a placebo effect? Is it real?
Placebos are real.
Yeah, they are real, right?
For sure.
But so one of the ones I always draw is that when I help others to shine, I shine too, or I shine brighter or something like that. And I truly believe that. So even on my days where I'm feeling really shy, that's part of that like mental sort of like check-in that I do before I leave in the morning. And it's like, maybe today isn't about me. Maybe today is about them. Give them a show or make them smile or push them, right? And so when I'm a little shy, I'll take someone else and I'll get them to do the ridiculous bat hang at the gym, or I'll get them to try a handstand somewhere they shouldn't. And when I watch somebody else thrive or expand or smile or feel joy, it's like my cup is filled up exponentially.
It's cool because you're serving people, and if you come from the attitude of serving and helping people, those are the people that kill it. Like, the best salespeople in the world are those that feel like they're helping someone, right? Because they're not selling it.
Yeah.
And then when people say they're not a salesperson, everyone's a salesperson, right? You sold your spouse, right? Like, the new Lion King. You're like, yo, we should go, right? So that's interesting though. Like, getting outside, stop getting out of yourself and helping others, because we're all just trying to get there.
Yeah.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, man.
It's like that deep breathing right before a presentation or right before you're about to like throw down, and you're like, that anxiety, it builds up and you're freaking out and you can't breathe.
Yeah.
It's like trying to take yourself out and just be like, yo, chill.
That's kind of that. Remember I was referring to, so you have your child self that's like in the reaction and in that state. And then you have that other that's like, hey, check in. Where are you right now? Like, you could calm down, right? And it's almost like, you have your speaking self, and you have your acting self, and then there's that version of you back there that's like, and this version of you can never stop and check in, right? And bring it back down. It's that version of you is just going to let this anxiety build and build and build.
There it is.
Yeah,
we going to clear out that anxiety, y'all. Ain't nobody got time for
Where
that.
Where are you from? Are you from the South somewhere?
Oh, no.
You always like step back into this like, y'all.
That's a LenJones character.
This is just for Jonesing. I'm feeling good. Ooh, it's a good day to have a damn good day. That's all it is. That's the motto. That's how we live.
All right, man. Are you Jewish?
I think I'm like 40-50% Scandinavian though. If you're into the Viking deal, right there.
I'm part Scandinavian too.
Big fan of the Vikings, like series. So good.
No, you remind me of someone who also like lived in Colombia and had friends in Colombia, and he does a little accent. And he's like this tall like white boy, and he's kind of goofy. And you remind me of him.
Fantastic. Big shout out to tall, white, and goofy over here. Straight homie.
The characteristics of LenJones.
Serving the peace.
Oh, his name's Fish Makes Photos. He's an incredible human.
I like fish.
Fish, you would love him. He's the best dancer I've ever met in my life.
I like to dance.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, but I can't actually dance.
No, he's like the best dancer.
Amazing. I mean, after this, maybe might be an
I
introduction.
think he'd be an appropriate person for the podcast, in fact. He's an interesting human.
That's all we're looking for. We're looking for people like yourself that are out there making moves, making things happen, and inspiring people. And I appreciate you coming here and being super real, super genuine. It takes a lot to do that. And for you to open your heart out, there's going to be a lot of people that this changes. So
I hope so.
How can more people follow your journey if they want to get more of the obster, of the A money?
Well, I do as little as I have to. So, there's basically Instagram. It's my only channel. I've been told I need to like utilize Facebook and Snapchat and all the things. But I mean, I never even had a social media, before Instagram. So that's a lot for me.
Hell yeah. And you're crushing it.
Thank you.
Hakuna Matata.
Thanks, man.
Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're the best. Nala. All right, with that said, we out.
What's
Peace.
Nala?
Or Nauli.
Nala is the lion from Lion King.
Nala
right?
from the Lion King.
Hey.
Hakuna Matata, Nala. I don't know. Simba and Nala?
I said
Simba
yeah,
and
but I was
Nala.
like, I don't know.
All right, we're done.
Namaste.
Thank you for listening to another episode of LenJones Party of Two. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review and subscribe to stay up to date on our new episodes. And remember, hope is not a strategy. Keep making moves. Till next time, peace.